Welcome to our Christmas show. I have to tell you right up front, I know what you're probably thinking. Why have you broken with tradition? Well, I'll get into that on Saturday, but suffice to say, things changed this year, so I have decided, given how much American Christmas tradition has its roots in Germany, the year had come to have an old-fashioned German-style Christmas. So I, of course, have gone all out. My Christmas tree is in the corner, decorated with angels. Stille Nacht is playing in the distance, and my mug of warmed mulled wine sits beside me next to a plate of Stalin. But of course, when one thinks of German tradition, there is obviously one thing that can never be forgotten, a symbol of hope for Germans across the years. Yes, of course, I mean David Hasselhoff. And of course, in classic German tradition, Saint Hasselhoff will deliver presents to good boys and girls thanks to his robot car. So to celebrate this, I present to you 3 tales of Hasselhoff's quintessential work and contribution to the arts, the mid-80s show Knightrider. In a little special which I like to call Drei Hasselhoffs für Aschenbrödel.
Wir fetzen durch die City und wir düsen durch den Park. Wir driften die Kurven den ganzen langen Tag. Die Kappe voller Flint und immer volle Kiste. Ja, so geht es ab hier, wir fürchten keine Piste. Alexandra brettert am liebsten durch die Pfützen. Es macht dir tierisch Spaß, die anderen nass zu spritzen. Kamikaze Markus, hey Leute, das ist heiß. Der geht sogar im Winter mit Inlineskates auf Eis. Inlineskates, komm wir fahren Inlineskates, fahren Inlineskates.
Let's get started with the first episode, the double-length launch of the series, Night of the Phoenix. The series picks up in Las Vegas, and we're off to a great start as Proud Mary is playing, and we cut to a band who are the worst lip-syncers I've ever seen, perhaps best shown when the one with the tambourine makes a point of putting the microphone to her mouth when her part comes up, and doesn't even bother to move her lips. I'm not saying sexual favors were involved in her getting to sing, I'm just saying singing talent wasn't one of them. But that isn't the only crime happening in this casino. While a high roller is hitting the craps table, his people, Wilson, Lonnie, and Tanya, are actually working to rip him off by copying his super secret technical plans. And not to try to find a weakness in his battle station either. But what they don't know is that they are actually being watched by Michael and Muncie. You might recognize Muncie as Boomer from the original Battlestar Galactica. No surprise, since this is also a Glenn Larson show. But don't get too attached. The passenger seat on Kit is for the chick of the week, not the sidekick. Although right now I have to say, Michael looks like the sidekick.
I want you to stay close to Mr. Acton. He's carrying a great deal of cash, right?
Just as soon as I finish my paper route. Yeah, that guy who looks like he gets carded every time he enters the casino is Michael, who, believe it or not, is our hero. I'm leaning towards not. Alas, Muncie is spotted tailing Lonnie since he demonstrates all the stealth of Bert at the start of Mary Poppins, and so Wilson calls in their American knockoff version of Ian Richardson to deal with him. Being television, he's attached a magic wand in the shape of a suppressor to his gun so that he can shoot Muncie in the middle of a parking lot full of people, and all the attention it draws is having to step over the body on the way to the nickel slots. Michael comes to help eventually, but by then he's too far gone.
Muncie, go after her.
Okay, Boomer. Tanya insists on joining Michael in the pursuit, where he lays out what the evil plot is, unaware that she's in on it. So even when he gets the drop on the others at the rendezvous, she's able to get the drop on him, and in the end, decides to shoot him in the head. It's not like he's been using it or anything. Well, as usually happens, a helicopter lands at the site of the shooting, because Michael is only mostly dead.
Well, what's the word?
I'm going to give you the same answer that I've been giving you for the past 4 days.
I'm a barber.
He's probably the only human being on this planet who's in worse condition than you are.
And you said there wasn't anyone like that. I proved you wrong. Michael survived the gunshot because he has a metal plate in his head.
It came back out through his face. We'll never know what he looked like.
Unless we put effort into it, but who wants that aggravation? So they have rebuilt his face so that he looks like a younger version of the rich guy. Oh yeah, there's nothing creepy about that.
I've got good news for you.
The card has been approved by the Führer. So yes, after the bandages are removed, Michael is shocked.
Why don't you take a look? It isn't me.
I look like that Baywatch Nights asshole. While he mulls over this massive change that they've made, because finding out his identity and getting a picture is way, way harder than building a functional artificial intelligence and sticking it into a self-driving car, Mr. Knight moves forward on his plans for after he's dead.
What have you told him?
I've told him he no longer has anyone to fear.
That way he won't see it coming when I hunt him for sport. He makes clear he wants the car done ASAP, so while his minion runs off to see to that, Mr. Knight gives his attention to Michael. Seems they have a common enemy in Tanya and her gang. We'll get into more of that later. Well, Michael isn't interested in any of this. He wants to go forward alone in his life. He doesn't want to wind up with someone else from Battlestar Galactica, because sooner or later he's going to wind up drawing the attention of the Cylons. But while discussing that, Michael notices a bunch of guys coming out of a nearby building who are all wearing matching jumpsuits, and his cop instincts tell him that something is up, enough to go in there and go snooping around. Oh shit, the Cylons! I knew this was going to happen! Apparently Devin, the blonde dude reporting to Mr. Knight, is in that car hoping to spook Michael because, hell, who wouldn't? Michael wants to know WTF, but apparently it involves something big, since you don't nearly run someone over to get funding for your walkathon. It's again about Tanya's group, but Michael repeats he wants nothing to do with them. From what happened, they obviously are too well connected to be brought in, so he's going to pass on the idea. I can't recall many works where the hero's call to action was in the form of other people trying to get him to see that he needs to get revenge. Usually the cause is more noble than make the bastards pay.
Hey, listen, I like that old man. I really do. But Devin, I gotta get on with my own life.
You wouldn't have a life if we hadn't brought you here.
Well, yeah, but there are limits to what gratitude is reasonable. If you save someone's life, you can't make them marry you or assassinate your brother-in-law or something. There are limits on the social contract. But the subject gets around to the car. Apparently this one is identical to David's, except for the sliding red light on the front. I hope.
It may look like your car, but in actuality, this vehicle is probably the most expensive car in the world.
Come on, this is my car. It's just a new paint job. It feels like baby skin.
And I've felt a lot of babies. Devin explains this isn't his car. It's made of an entirely new substance. Even the paint isn't really paint. It's bonded right into the surface of the new material.
There's not a mark on it.
Nothing can harm our special wood. Now, if that impressed you, Michael, you're going to be wowed by the undercoat. Inside the car, it is unbelievable. Even the steering wheel looks like an airplane yoke, and it has an artificial intelligence inside, to compensate for the absence of intelligence behind the wheel. Case in point. At Devin's prompting, Michael puts the car through its paces, and you could tell it's the 80s because they're going around 150 miles an hour, I'm not exaggerating, and they aren't bothering to wear their seatbelts. Michael is aghast when the car takes control and swerves around the truck because suddenly safety matters. But Devin assures that it only did so because it sensed that under the circumstances they were in danger, and so had to either slow down or speed around it, and it chose to err on the side of being awesome. This kind of thing makes Michael nervous, since we've all seen The Terminator, but Devin assures him that the car is programmed to value human life, and Michael's in particular. More on that later. Back at the house, Mr. Knight is literally on his deathbed now.
Look, you gotta put that thing on the market. Could save thousands of lives.
Yep, nobody could possibly object to self-driving cars. Nobody. Mr. Knight asks one last time for Michael to be a hero. A hero out for revenge. I mean, yeah, sure, sometimes the call to action really is the hero deciding to get revenge, but very rarely are they just trying to go on with their lives and other people are saying, no, you totally need to get some revenge. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you being totally irrational and getting people needlessly killed to try to fill the emptiness inside of you, huh? What's wrong with you? Well, Michael confesses what's wrong with him is lingering trauma from getting shot in the head. Even though he survived, it still has messed him up, and he's not sure that he can be the champion now.
Remember that moment. Think of it as your baptism by fire.
Become my apprentice. Learn to use the dark side of the Force. Well, finally, Mr. Knight passes away.
For God's sake, don't go quite so fast. I'm puffed.
Sorry, Devin, but I got places to go.
I'm not hanging around. He's not going to get any less dead. Well, he's decided to go after Tanya, but on his terms.
She's working in a place called Silicon Valley.
Whoever heard of a stupid-sounding place like that? Turns out Michael has somehow been adopted, as his new name is Michael Knight. Although given the way the guy names things, it could be just that he brands everything Knight. Michael is just the latest thing. There's probably a barcode in his armpit and he's been microchipped like a cat.
Oh, just a minute. There are several things about this car that I ought to explain.
That's all right. I'm a fast study. I'll pick things up as I go along.
Says the guy who drove it through the wall. So off he goes, driving through scenic America for a while because we paid for the location shooting. But as he muses aloud about wanting to turn on some music, the car finally speaks to him. Although it takes a while for him to remember that the car can think. So for it to talk isn't too big of a stretch. I mean, hell, I know a lot of people who talk that can't think, so this is a refreshing reversal. It introduces itself as Kit.
I'm going to listen to some good music and don't offer any suggestions. I'll choose my own.
As you wish, Mr. Knight. But since you are still recovering from your ordeal and I detect we're in a slightly irritable mood caused by fatigue, may I suggest you put the car in the auto-cruise mode for safety's sake?
No, you may not.
From "this car can save a lot of lives" to "shut up and let me drive off the side of a canyon while I sleep." Because yeah, eventually Michael starts to fall asleep at the wheel. And I don't just mean a little nodding off like we've all had at some point. No, I mean the just ate a turkey dinner and the thermostat is set kind of high kind of nodding off. I've taken longer to go under after taking NyQuil than this guy. Kit tries to wake him up, but there's only so much it can do. So finally Kit just takes over and lets him nap. I mean, what's the harm? Well, sure enough, there's some harm. The highway patrol spots Michael sawing a log while leaning against the window, and so pull a U-turn to pursue. I mean, look at that. The driver looks like Michael just groped his sister. They're flummoxed at how he can even stay on the road, and how he can sleep through them driving alongside with their lights on, horn blaring, and banging on the roof of his car. Michael is many things, but light sleeper is not one of them.
What the? What's going on? What did I do?
Deny everything.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's going to be the SOP for this pair. Michael assumes this is all Kit's fault somehow, despite Kit coming up with some helpful suggestions on how to get out of the crap that he's gotten himself into. Michael feigns that he has a kink in his neck and deafness, and given how Kit stayed on the road through a winding canyon pass, they figure that would explain how he's not dead, and so let him go on his way to Silicon Valley, or at the very least, what we're told is Silicon Valley. The establishing shot of a sleepy tree-filled burb on the edge of farm country suggests somebody doesn't know what the center of the technological world looks like. This is so not Silicon Valley, I'm wondering if someone figured just any old clumps of homes in a valley would fool the audience. Given what happens near the end of this one with the gunshot wound, they don't seem to think much of their audience's intelligence anyway. But yeah, they arrive at the House of the Rising Sun, leading to yet another argument.
Social gathering places where alcoholic beverages are consumed in quantity can create an environment in which indiscretion becomes commonplace. Just remember, this is business, not pleasure.
You're about as much fun as a divorce, which is not a bad idea.
I want custody of me.
I've heard it suggested that 1982, the year that this came out, was the ugliest year in history as far as clothing went. That's when the tail end of the 70s T-bones the coming style of the 80s. It's like velociraptors versus saber-toothed tigers, only we all lose. For more reminders that it's 1982, two broadly drawn car thieves come by and spot Kit. The short Latino guy is the comic relief, as shown not only by his behavior, but his decision to dress so that he looks like Mario going to visit a rodeo. The other one is Michael D. Roberts, who's been in a lot of roles, though personally, I'll always remember him as Roscoe from Ice Pirates.
I don't mean anything by this, but is there any particular reason why he's black?
Sure. I wanted him to be perfect.
Well, even El Mario can tell that this is a bad time and place to try to steal a Trans Am, so they leave with the intent of following it to steal it later. Oblivious to this, Michael's been watching that booth full of fashion criminals and asks the waitress about them and about Tanya.
Hey!
Oh, right on the schnitzel. Maggie, the waitress, doesn't even pretend that she didn't deliberately douse his crotch when the manager comes over, so he cans her over Michael's objections. Luckily, the massive scene that Maggie has made drew some attention, so one of Tanya's friends meets him outside, and he says he wants to meet with her to make a sweet business deal. This puts him on her radar, as he likely planned, but right now he's hoping Maggie might have some answers. But all she has are complaints.
I'm not a friend of Tanya's. I just need to find her.
Well, who cares? Not me. She and that group of parasites of hers have taken away everything that ever meant anything to me. My husband, my job, my house. I can't even afford decent clothes for my kid.
So it's a good thing you got yourself fired today. That'll help turn things around. She's flabbergasted when, in her huff to damage Kit, it's undamaged.
I don't believe it. How can I go through life with luck this bad? I plow into your car and my bumper falls off.
Yeah, it's as if your constant petty acts of vengeance keep making your life worse. You're like a cautionary tale. Probably started with a 6-figure salary, got mad because Tanya showed up at a party wearing the same dress, and now she has avenged herself down to unemployment with a broken VW. This is what happens when you listen to people who tell you you should get revenge.